Hey guys, welcome. So today I'm moving on to part 2 in how to build a Backstage plugin. We're going to cover how to build out the Backend plugin. This is going to be a Backend plugin that will call an external API. In this case, the APIs I'm going to be using are to be call and connect, and it will also leverage data from the Backstage component in order to help render it on the front end, and also the Backstage app config to make the API calls to call and connect successful. Like I said, this is part 2 in a series. In part 1, I covered the reference architecture to really understand the plan. I'm very visual, so if you haven't seen that already, go ahead and circle back and do that. And so with that, thanks for joining me. I'm Danny Fries, and let's go ahead and get started. Hey guys, so let's start with some Excalibur and diagramming. So from part 1, we're right here on building a backend plugin, and this backend plugin is eventually going to be able to basically successfully call the ConConnect APIs available, and then a front-end plugin, part 3, is going to render that data on the front end as a React page. So to the backend plugin, what exactly do we need to make this happen? Well, there's a number of bits of data that we're going to need, and so first is what would be needed on a Backstage component. So this is our Backstage component right here. See if I can make this large, just so we know which one I'm talking about. And I'm not. So the first two things to highlight is that a component kind of like is just an attribute that you want to be tracking in Backstage. We talked about in the part 1. And so the specifications right here, this is all the normal attributes that Backstage offers, but how are we going to, with a component, understand what we need to look up in some external API or understand some kind of relationship? And actually, in order to garner a relationship between a Backstage component and some external resource, we can actually use annotations to do that. So I've got you can see right here, like I've scaffolded out the annotations that we're going to be building. Man, that was a horrible line. I think I'm going to get rid of it, but you can see what I'm saying. We've got 2 annotations right here. We've got 2 annotations right there. Maybe I'll do arrows. One for our control plane right there, and one for our gateway service ID. So I'm not anticipating you to be super familiar with ConConnect, but these are just 2 attributes that would be related to a component that we may need to know. And so that's where we're going to be able to find them on the annotations. The second thing is there's actually credentials, right? You can't just usually, if it's an important API, you can't just hit stuff willy-nilly. And so where would we put configuration that is kind of needed by the entire Backstage application, irrespective of user, things of that nature? And that's where we would look into the Backstage app config. This is just like the parent config file that's spun up with Backstage. And then in here, what we can do is we can just very simply add whatever we need to that is relevant. So in order to connect, we would need to know the base URL. We actually also need to know the cloud URL, and everything's protected. We would need an access token. So this would be like, actually, we do have service account tokens. This realistically want to be a service account token. And so with that information combined, the backend plugin will be able to kind of pull this information. Give this a different color, like red. Yeah, give it red. So our backend component will be able to basically grab that information as configuration, pull in those configs in order to make a API call over to ConConnect. I think I've got a library here. Con. It's the wrong color. Let's make it the right color. It's gonna drive me bananas. There we go. And And so some of the APIs that we're gonna have, let me grab a couple because I already built a few. Is, for example, we'll need to know see if I can straighten that up. Yeah, that's a little bit nicer. It's a little long, so I'm just gonna half it. So like an example of one endpoint we need to be calling, we need to know the base config URL, so that's going to come from this guy from the app config. Let's get this over so we can all see. There we go. So this base config URL is going to come from the app config. Control planes, control plane ID, that's going to come from the component. Core identity services, service ID, and so that's going to be a gateway service ID. So it's going to take aggregate the information that we need from both of these manifests or configurations, so to speak, in order to successfully make the conconnect call, as well as, you know, you don't see the use of the access token, but in the API call, fundamentally the access token will be there. So that is, in a quick second, that's going to be the plan. And then where do these Backstage components get stored? So these actually become a part of your microservices. So in this example, it's just, I have a GitHub repository and it's just got a component in there in order so I could easily call it. Realistically, there would be more in here, possibly like, you know, your microservice and the CI/CD and its configuration and things like that and how to deploy it. But that's just being super quick. So this is just a repository with the sample component, and that is properly annotated. Yep. Okay, cool. So that's it. So in the next second, we're going to start coding this all out in Backstage. Yep. So here I am in VS Code. I'm going to start by instantiating a new backend plugin from scratch. So if you're in the parent directory of Backstage, which is where I am, I'm going to go ahead and execute yarn new, and let's see what it's got. We're going to do a backend plugin. I'm going to call the backend plugin connect. And it should give us kind of a scaffold of like a hello world backend plugin. And then we will start moving on from there. Okay, that's done. So let's go to connect backend, source, service, router. Yeah, and here we're back with our hello world. So we need to go ahead and set this up. So what I'm going to do first is let's go over to Google. Yeah, let's go here. Bring Excalibur back. Let's go ahead and decide on the structure of the plugin. So I think what would be nice is supposedly nice structure of the code. So what we're going to do is go some code. I think we're going to do inside source double space it service. We're going to do, we've already got a router TS, but we need to go ahead and add a types.ts to store all our types because that's good practice. And then we also need to have a connect service.ts, and then yeah, and we'll leave the tests alone for now just to expedite it. And then after that we'll go into we gotta write the types up, we gotta build the connect service, and then after that we will go in and router to TS, but this will just be an edit this file to call connect services. So that'll be the plan. Let me put a block around this so we can kind of see. Aggregate things together, it's beautiful. Send that to the back. Boom. So that's the plan for the file structure. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So here in VS Code, I've got connect backend. So that's the convention for plugins, be connect dash frontend, connect dash backend. So let me go ahead and start in service and create a types. And I already wrote out a bunch of types, so I'm going to go ahead and grab those. talk about it together. So let me grab the types first. So there's a number of resources inside Connect that I want to grab for a gateway service. There's the gateway service itself. It's going to have, there's an endpoint for that, and it's going to have all of these attributes on the JSON object. There's going to be a route, or there could be many routes. It's going to be one-to-many plugins as well, so that's what this object looks like. And then we need to write a couple of interfaces for calling the Connect service. So I'm going to have I've got three methods I want implemented by the Connect API. Get service, which is going to actually retrieve the gateway service. Get routes by service, which is going to also retrieve all the routes associated to gateway service. And then same thing for get plugins, get all of the plugins associated to a gateway service. And then the last thing I wanted to add is what is involved in the Connect config. So the Connect config really has a access token and a base URL. Is there anything else? I don't think so. I think that's it. Yep. So that's 1, 2, 3 for our types. Our interface for API endpoints. The config. This is our app config. Backstage config object. For instance, when this is our Connect service interface we're going to implement. Interface, and then these are all of our types. We've got a gateway service, route, and plugin. Okay, I did that fast, but yeah, that's really it. Truthfully speaking, yeah. Next, let's go ahead and go to our gateway service. So let me implement that. And what did I need to do here? So I'm not good at types. That's me. I'm better at Java. What did I do? Implement Connect API. We need to go ahead and import that guy. Import. No. From our types. It's mad because it's not implementing those three classes. And let's go ahead and start in the constructor. So, oh yeah, so what configs do we need to keep around? I called the Connect, I keep the Connect config around. It's gonna be a type. Apple, how did I do that? Connect config. Yep, and that auto-magically filled in there with the linter. Constructor. I'm gonna go ahead and copy paste the constructor and so you guys can just see really quickly. Here we go. Thank you. Thank you. So that's our constructor. It's just going to take that connect config and pass it over. And then we need to go ahead and implement these services. So I'm just going to grab the interfaces. Just kind of copy paste really quickly. Got those types, and let's go ahead and start on implementation. So yeah, I use the fetch API, which is not my favorite. Yeah, it wants to just return raw data. Nah, I'm not gonna do that. So the fetch API is already there. So I didn't futz around with Axios. And all this is doing is, and you can see, so if we read the API, you can see that I'm using the Connect configuration to kind of construct most of the URL, and then I'm also expecting the control plane ID and the service ID to come in. So the front end, when it makes a call, is going to propagate those. When it makes the API call to the backend, it's going to pass those two attributes in. I'm going to parse that and then make the API call to connect. So 1, 2, 3. And you can see how, because it's the fetch API where I'm using the header token, and then if there's an error, I'm just going to throw an error. If not, I'm just going to return the JSON. And we're just going to repeat this 3 times over. Oh, I didn't make this async. Make that async. Make that async. Async. There we go. And then let's go ahead and do get routes by service. It's going to be pretty similar. I wrote this one a little different because I was futzing with Typescript. I don't always know. I'm still learning. Still trying to really figure out the Typescript thing. I really enjoy Java. It's really my favorite. Oh, let's fix that. Plugins. Here we go. Does that look right? Save that. So that is fundamentally plugin ID. No, it's not right. That's service ID. Did I make a mistake in the interface? Let me go to check the interface. Plugin ID, that's why. Let's fix that. Here we go. So we have those 3 functions. This is off. Let me try it. Let me copy this over again. Yeah, that's better. Okay, yeah, I just had that extra curly brace, I think. So all 3 are fundamentally the same. I've just got a connect service, and it's got 2 attributes that we need to pass in. These 2 are coming from the component, and then these 2 are already there. They're from the backstage app config. Let me grab. So here we've got, actually I'll put this over here, right? That makes the most sense, doesn't it? Definitely does. We're gonna do that. Colors everywhere. I'm gonna move Kong out of the way. I'll stretch out. This, good enough. Yeah, so we've got our types, which has got our types and our interfaces. We've got our connect service, which is going to this is actually, can I grab that arrow? Well, let me grab the arrow. Okay, it's okay. I'll grab another arrow. This guy is actually the one making the call. And then when the backend plugin is instantiated, it already ingests the app config. And so we're just waiting on the backstage component. I feel like I've beat that to a dead horse, so I'm not going to say that anymore. Okay. What do we need to do next is go into the router and go ahead and fix this, because this is not calling, it's just returning health endpoint. So we need to fix this guy. So we do want a logger. I didn't use a logger, but I should use a logger, but it's okay. We do need a config here. And so thank you. That is the app config, and it's already, the import came in. That's good. We do need to deconstruct that from the options. It's declared but not used. Great. And then we need to go ahead and grab the make a connect configuration. Basically did const base URL. And so with the config, they've got methods to do a get string. Actually, we can look that up real quick just so we see how to do that. Config. I forgot how I found this. Reading backstage configuration. This will cover what we're doing. Accessing the config API for backend. Okay, that's not what I want. There's like where is it? API reference, package index. Let's look for config, backstage config reader, type aliases config. Yeah, and here are all of the methods we have available to us. So there's getString, Boolean number, optional string is also used pretty frequently. So I'm just using getString for simplicity because it's not really optional. Like you really do kind of need it. I suppose it just depends on the use case. So let's also grab that access token. And then let's go ahead and create a connect config. So to do that, well, we need to go ahead. We can go ahead and create the connect service. So I'm going to call it connect SVC, and then I'm going to pass in as an object the base URL and the access token. And it's complaining because I haven't imported this. What did I call this guy? No, class connect service. Let's go ahead and import him. We're in the same path. Yeah, so let's just do that. Great, and then we haven't used it, and so we're gonna blow that away. We no longer need it. And we're gonna go ahead and start constructing the API calls that the backend plugin will expose. Okay, so now we're at a point where the backend plugin is going to expose endpoints. Back to Excalibur. Okay. What do I mean? So the connect service has these three methods. So many arrows. Yeah, so the connect service has these three API calls, which is boils down to get service, get route by service. It's really by service ID, but who's judging? Get plugins by service ID. Those are the three methods that we're going to call to connect. Those get called over to connect. I'll put a box around this so that we can kind of just really easily set them apart, send back, and I'll just make the background transparent for simplicity. Come on, Kong, go over there. And then those endpoints look like this, right? And then now we need to expose. So the backend plugin is really just it's also just basically an API that we can call. And so now from here, we need to call, how is the front end going to call the back end is the question we need to answer. So we need to expose more routes. So those routes are going to look like, I like to write them basically as equivalent as possible. So I almost basically did it. Actually, well, I kind of made it exactly as the Connect UI renders it, so that it's kind of an easy paradigm to shift between looking at the Connect API, like in Connect, and looking at it from Backstage. I thought that was convenient. So to that point, before I could go too far, let me go ahead and just grab an example. So this is an example of the get service. So that's get service. This is get the routes. And then this was get, and then let me grab the third one. This is the endpoint for getting the plugin. So when you actually look at the URL that Connect UI renders for you, this is actually kind of what it looks like. And so I kind of kept it the same because I thought it would be nice. And it actually is just a really lovely parallel between the two. So these are the 3 endpoints that we write. This is what goes into the router. Actually, I'm just going to copy. So this is the router.ts file right here. This is our connect right there. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, let's get out of ScalaDraw. Let's go ahead and do it. Quick. So what we've got is we've got the config file is going to grab everything from the app config. From the app config, we've got these 2 guys, app config is right there. And then we're going to call the connect, and then we instantiate the connect service with the app config. And now we need to go ahead and make expose the routes or write those endpoints. My Copilot likes to fill stuff in, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to show you what I did over here. I'm going to copy this in. Yeah, so this is the first one that I wrote. Connect SVC. Yeah, I'll make it the same. You know, because I scaffolded a lot of this out in advance to make sure it was working. And so I'm exposing a get endpoint. This is the endpoint. These are the attributes. These are the query parameters. It's async, and it's going to internally call. I put some loggers in there just to make sure it was working, and then it's going to internally call the connect service to get that service. And we're here, you can see we're passing in, again, those query parameters. And then just, if there's any errors, return an error response. And yeah, that's it. We're going to do that 3 times. 2 more times. So this is get service. Let's go ahead and get the routes. Get the routes, same thing, and then get the plugins. And that's great. Get plugins. Why is this mad at me? Never had an angry comment. Volunteer's mad at me. I'm just gonna take it away then. Red stuff also bothers me. Okay, and so that's now the router. So if we run this, oh, you know what? I don't think this is gonna work because this is a plugin in the old plugin style, and my packages I moved over to the new backend system, and I haven't accounted for that. Okay, so we're gonna have to come back and actually, I need to write a plugin. Kerp. Okay, we're gonna have to figure that out because I haven't done that yet. Let's go to source. Let's go ahead and add a plugins.ts file. Let me grab my example plugin. And I'm gonna have to start refactoring this. Is the connect backend plugin. We actually also need a config, but I don't know how to get that config in yet. So that's a mystery. The plugin ID, I think we'll just call the plugin ID connect. And you know what we're stuck on is this config. So I gotta go figure that out because we have the logger, meaning, let's clean up. Meaning, can we split this? Yeah. If we look at the instantiation of create router, it's expecting the the options that we need that logger, we need that config. And so I don't know how to pull that config in yet in this new backstage, in the new backend system for Backstage. A lot of words here. We gotta go find that. That's what I would imagine. It's complaining. Config does not exist yet. Where's that guy? We'll be back. So I pulled up the documentation, and it looks like from their overview, the config is in core services root config. And then you can read the current config as you see fit. Okay, so let me see if I can do that here. So I put config, let's put in root config, great. And then I need to, maybe I can just pass in the config. Okay, that's gotta be right. Okay, so that connect, what's going on up here? What you hooting and hollering about? Can I grab it? I think we had a dependency issue. Yay! Okay, cool. And then we need to go ahead and we imported the router. That doesn't need to change. It's the same router. That's kind of convenient. Okay, cool. So that should be good to go. And the last thing is we want to call this from the Backstage. So that was the plugin, and then the last bit, let's close the plugins. We gotta go to packages backend, which is the actual Backstage backend. Index. Yeah, and see, we gotta import it here. Got hello world. I'll just leave that there. Import. Oh, I didn't fix the export. This is called hacking together. Let me look at what I did at code freeze one. Index as default. Right. Okay, so let me go. Because before we were exporting did I change the name of this thing? Ah, so many files. Don't save. Abort. Service. No, not service. Plugin. I don't think I changed the name. Let's go back and plugin. Yeah, let's call this connect backend plugin, because that is super duper clear. Great. Okay, that's ready. No, I need to save that. Connect backend plugin. Done. Okay, now we're going to go to packages, backend, source, index. This is the actual Backstage backend. We're going to import our new plugin we called it connect backend plugin. That import looks wrong. Yeah, that looks better. Yeah. Why is he yelling at me? I think I definitely borked something when I another dependency issue. Looks okay. Now let's do backend add to actually add this plugin. Now from the parent directory of Backstage, which is where we are. If I do yarn dev, oh, it's not going to work. You want to know why? Because I don't have my app config. It's not updated yet. Yeah, missing required config value. Yeah, okay, so let's go ahead and see if we can fix that. I've got that. So if from the app config, they already got a bunch of configuration in here for you. So what I'm gonna do, oh, but it's still going up. Okay, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scroll all the way to the bottom, and I'm gonna add I've got some configuration ready to go. Boop boopity doopity doops. Here we go. Connect the base URL, the cloud URL. I put that there in case I thought I needed it, but I ended up not using it. And the access token. You could try to use it, but by the end of this video, I'll probably have blown it away. So good luck. Okay. Save. Now let's see what's going on. Successful. So theoretically, in the world of theory, first of all, do all these errors go away? It doesn't seem to fix it, so I'm just gonna reboot. Try again. Where's my other? I'm gonna put all my backstage stuff together. Now we can see successful calls going through to the backend endpoints. There we go. And so, how do we call this? We go to localhost. Is that gonna work? Can't be found. Getting a 404. Why am I getting a 404? What did I call the plugin? Oh, connect. That ID is. Let's see if I shift that. Yeah! Status failed! No! Not found. Okay, so, you know, I bet I'm having just a... So, quickly trying to figure out what's going on here. Oh, wrong. Yeah, because I kind of like my history. No. Oh, yeah, there's no plugins. Yeah, let's do a better example. There we go. Phew! We're back. I'm all nervous. Gosh, good grief. Okay, so this is calling backstage. I called backstage, made a GET request, which is in turn making this call to the backend plugin, which is in turn making a call to ConConnect. Whoa. Scale draw that thing. From the URL, I started backstage. Then in the browser, I put in this URL. I'm going to paste it here. Localhost is good enough. Started backstage. Backstage, I called... How am I going to draw this? Okay, because we didn't do the component piece yet. But I started backstage. So I called... I'm just going to do box. Another box. Yet another box. Wow, that's weird. Wasn't expecting that. I called backstage. Backstage.io. Here comes the cat. Earthquake. Backstage. Backstage called the backend plugin. The backend plugin called ConConnect and returned it all back. And that is what I'm rendering right here in the browser. And everything's vibrating because the cat's on the desk. I'm sorry. So that's it for part 2. That we put together a backend plugin that's calling an external service. And we also are working in the new backend system. That wasn't planned, but it seemed to go okay, so it wasn't too bad. And in the next video, what we're going to do is, we're going to go back to this front end plugin and... Sorry. Let's go back. We're going to go to the front end plugin, and in this front end plugin, we're going to drop a page that is going to go ahead and run this information for us. That's it. Thanks for hacking through that with me. And I will see y'all later.